Here I am married to Joe Pizzorno, one of the most knowledgeable integrative naturopathic doctors on the planet. And I was doing everything right. And I was already severely osteopenic. And I was like 45. And I thought, gee, I am doing everything right. It's not going to happen to me. Well, it was happening to me. And so I was inspired, shall I say, to figure out what on earth was going on so that I could fix it, because I really didn't want to break a hip when I was in my early 50s. So I remember coming up here, getting the report from my DEXA scan that I was fine, and I just cried. You can rebuild your bones. Like, don't completely freak out. You just need to determine what factors are causing your bone loss, and it's doable.
Lara Pizzorno calls herself the poster child for osteoporosis, and she's not kidding. She had almost every risk factor in the book, but instead of accepting her fate, she fought back. And not only did she reclaim her bone health, she's helped thousands of others do the same. Hi, I'm Monica from AlgaeCal, and today I'm sitting down with Lara Pizzorno, author of Healthy Bones, Healthy You. Lara saw osteoporosis run in her family, and when she was diagnosed with low bone density herself, she decided to take matters into her own hands. That led to 30 years of research and some life-changing discoveries. She spent decades uncovering what really works to prevent and even increase bone density. And she's not just talking about it. She's sharing her knowledge in some of the most respected medical publications out there. Lara has been a member of the American Medical Writers Association for over 25 years. She's reviewed and published articles on bone health in top medical journals, and she's spoken at medical conferences all around the world. She's also contributed to leading textbooks on natural and functional medicine. And today, she's kindly agreed to talk about her own bone health struggles, the biggest lessons she's learned, and most importantly, what you can do today to build stronger bones for life. Lara, I'm so excited to have you here. So let's start at the beginning. Can you tell us about your bone health journey and what really kind of put you forward to take action about your bone health?
So when I was in my early 40s, Joe and I were at a medical conference, and in the exhibit hall, they had equipment where doctors could, buy a small machine to have in their offices to just check ankle bone density, to see if they needed to refer their patients in for a full DEXA, which, costs a lot more money. And I, of course, went over, and, here I am married to Joe Pizzorno, the president of Bastyr University, one of the most knowledgeable integrative naturopathic doctors on the planet. And I was doing everything right, which is what I typically hear from people that write me. I was doing everything right. Why am I losing bone? And I was already severely osteopenic, and I was like 45. So, I was not perimenopausal yet. I mean, I had had no change. And so it was, and I knew that everybody in my family, all the women I knew about, my mother, her sisters, my grandmother, even some of my uncles had broken their hips early and basically never recovered or died, early. And I thought, gee, I am doing everything right. It's not going to happen to me. Well, it was happening to me. And so I was inspired, shall I say, to figure out what on earth was going on so that I could fix it, because I really didn't want to break a hip when I was in my early 50s,
Absolutely. And I mean, that must have just been so startling. Like you said, you're going into this test more just for fun, just to see. And then you discover you have this bone loss. And I knew about your family history on your mother's and her sister's side, but not on the men's side either. So
yeah, a couple of my uncles.
Yeah, that's scary.
Well, the issues that I have that were the primary drivers of my bone loss relate to vitamin D. And there's a bunch of SNPs for vitamin D issues, and I have every single one of them. So my vitamin D receptors are malformed, and the enzymes that activate vitamin D are slow, and the enzymes that get it out of your body are fast. And then there are some other things, but those are probably the main ones. And I was living in Seattle, where the Rain Festival runs August through, I don't know.
Love that Rain Festival.
Yeah, it's the Rain Festival. Yeah, we have Bumbershoot there, as in the fall, and it just starts raining and it never stops. And sun exposure is not great in Seattle. And so it's a combination that was just lethal for me, or would have been if I hadn't been fortunate enough to know, breaking research and figured out what was going on. So,
And so how did you make that shift, I guess, to figure out what was going on after that diagnosis?
well, we knew this is boy. So I'm 76 now. I was 45 then. So this is a while ago. The genetic research was just starting, and we knew people who were involved in it. And they suggested that I have a panel run to see what SNPs I had. They were, it was a very early preliminary panel, but everything on it went Nova. And so we realized that I was really vitamin D deficient. And without vitamin D, I think most of our viewers know, you cannot actively absorb calcium without vitamin D. So it's a big problem for bone. And there are other reasons why it's a problem for bone, but that's probably the primary one. And back then, the recommended intake for vitamin D was 400 IU a day, which now we laugh. But back then, that's what everybody thought was adequate. And we just started increasing my vitamin D. And finally, I was taking like 10 to 15,000 IU of vitamin D a day. And our doctor friends thought I was going to turn into a pillar of calcium, like a updated version of Lot's wife as calcium statue. But I didn't. I just, my vitamin D levels went up. They still weren't fabulous, but I think I finally got up to like 30 or 32, taking about 15,000 IU a day. I had a friend who was another doctor who mentioned to me that she'd had a lot of difficulty getting her vitamin D levels up, even taking massive amounts. And she was dealing with breast cancer, which I don't know if you're familiar with cancer's effects on vitamin D. Cancers hate vitamin D. Vitamin D normalizes things, and cancer does everything it can to get rid of your vitamin D. So cancer does the same thing that my genetics naturally do for me. It activates the proteins that clear out vitamin D very quickly. It shuts down the proteins that make it active. And so it's very hard to get your vitamin D level. It's harder for people with cancer to get their vitamin D levels up, and it's actually even more important for them. So this doctor, a friend of mine, her name's Dr. Molly Linton, she said she started taking vitamin D as a sublingual drop, and all of a sudden her levels went up. And so I like research. So I looked at the research to see why that might help. And the main reason it helps is that when you take vitamin D sublingually, it doesn't immediately go to your liver. Okay, you absorb it through the mucous membranes in your mouth, and it goes into your systemic circulation. And it has a chance to circulate around the body for a little while before it goes to the liver and gets processed, which is where those enzymes that clear it out faster are activated. Okay, and in your kidneys also. So I started taking sublingual vitamin D, and shockingly, like my levels went up too much. I only had to take like one drop of sublingual vitamin D to have my levels get into a more normal range. I still need to take about 5,000 IU of vitamin D. I take 2,000 IU drop sublingual, and then I take AlgaeCal Plus, which has 1,600 IU in it, and I take D3 Complete.
Wow. I mean, a lot of insights there packed into.
Yes. Yeah. So if someone listening to this is taking a fair amount of vitamin D and is not getting any good results, they might want to try a sublingual drop.
Mm-hmm. Okay. No, that's great advice. And so one thing I heard there was you love research. And so when you started kind of going down this bone health journey, what was that transition, or how did you discover AlgaeCal? I know the answer, but
Okay. Yeah, it's a good story. So I had written my first book, the first edition of Your Bones, and I was every morning I spend the first couple of hours looking at breaking research that relates to bone health.
You do, I know this.
Yeah,
This is
and what came up there was the very initial studies that AlgaeCal had done. They were cell studies, and I looked at the effect of the AlgaeCal on all the factors that improve bone health in these in vitro studies, and I thought, wow. So then I think Dean Niles, the owner of AlgaeCal, was going to be in Seattle. Well, first I contacted him. I sent him an email, and I said, "Wow, your research is really interesting. Can you send me more? Can you send me all the stuff related to the research so I can learn more?" And he wrote me back, and he said he was going to be in Seattle, which is where I live, doing the first hundreds of DEXA scans on several hundred women who were participating in one of the early AlgaeCal studies to determine which formulation would be the most effective in restoring bone health. And so I met with him, and I was just blown away. So he gave me, I think, a 6-month supply of the interim AlgaeCal supplement, and I started taking it. And I was already, I thought, doing everything right, and I was things were very slowly starting to improve for me. 6 months after taking AlgaeCal, my bones were basically normal, and I was convinced. So then I wanted to try to help, help other people become aware of this option, and write research articles about it in relation to it, and try to be helpful. So I started working with AlgaeCal.
I love that. And I think I'm glad you mentioned it because a lot of people know AlgaeCal now because we have those 3 human clinical studies.
Right.
But like you said, our very first one was the cell in vitro study, which, typically a lot of companies do. And then you see if there's promise there and then enter additional research. So that's lovely. But how long did it take for you? Because I know you're saying slowly but surely your bone health started getting better. How long did it really take for you to, see the effects with AlgaeCal Plus and Strontium Boost, which was
Okay, so as I mentioned, after I figured out about the vitamin D, I wasn't taking sublingual vitamin D yet, but I was taking a lot of vitamin D, and things were very slowly turning around. And then so it was improving, but it was slow. And then after I started taking the AlgaeCal Plus and Strontium Boost, it took about 6 months.
how was that feeling? Like, going from that
It was
diagnosis?
fabulous.
Yeah.
It was wonderful. I mean, the people that write in and say, I went to my doctor and I had my latest DEXA run, and, I've improved 10, 12, 14%. And, I'm so ecstatic. I can really relate to that because I had the same experience. And back then, I think it was 2012, I, a guy, he was a really nice man, actually, but he ran a red light. And I was in a smart car, which I still drive a smart car, but another one because he destroyed my car. Um, he ran into the back of my car, which was lifted into the air and shoved under the car in front and completely crushed at both ends. And I was hurt, you know. And it turned out that I developed a cyst. Well, first of all, there was a lot of inflammation. And then I developed a fluid-filled cyst on my spine that was a protective reaction of my body to this insult. And I started getting nerve damage. And it took about 2 years before we figured it all out. And I went into the hospital and they removed the cyst. I mean, which I was in and out of the hospital in 2 hours, and all the pain was gone and I was fine. But I was really worried what was going to happen on my next DEXA scan, because chronic inflammation from any cause will activate osteoclasts. And your osteoblasts try to keep up, but they can't. It's a lot easier to destroy a building, than to rebuild one. It's the same thing with your bones. So I remember coming up here. I called Dean that afternoon and getting the report from my DEXA scan that I was fine, and I just cried. So it really, many people write me, they're on an aromatase inhibitor, or they're dealing with some condition where they just have chronic inflammation. They can't, it's not something they can fix. Maybe not at all, or at least not rapidly. And, obviously they're worried about it. AlgaeCal can really help. At least from my N of 1 experience, it prevented the bone loss for me.
No, and
So.
thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I know you mentioned now we're AlgaeCal and you are working together, and we'll touch on that in a little bit. But I think that's a reason why that everyone feels so close and connects with you is because, like you said, you have experienced this, you've gone through it. And it's, I think part of that too, when you have that diagnosis, it could be scary, and community and support is so important. And that's what we'll talk about in a little bit. But beyond supplementation and AlgaeCal, you talk about a lot of things like diet and exercise. And so I want to ask you to kind of share, what do you do for exercise? What are lifestyle things that you do to kind of make bone health a focus?
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to preface that with, I think we live in a society where we've been trained to pop a pill and it's just going to take care of everything. That does not work for bone health. I mean, even if you take AlgaeCal and you don't exercise and your diet is just garbage, and you're under a lot of stress, hey, you're going to lose bone. I mean, you have to supplement wisely, eat properly, and get regular weight-bearing exercise. The three things really go together, and and trying to lower stress too is also important. But what I try to do for myself is we try to eat as much organically grown food as possible. I know Joe is an expert in environmental toxins, and so I know way more about this than I would like to know because it's pretty overwhelming and scary. So we do what we can to minimize our exposure to environmental toxins, which definitely promote bone loss. And one way to do that is to try to eat organic. And also, I cook. I've become very efficient at it. I have an Instant Pot, which is a huge help, and a rice cooker. And I try to grocery shop on the weekend, like on Saturday, and then on Sunday afternoon, I cook for a couple of hours, and I freeze, some of what I've made, and I use my Instant Pot. And in that afternoon, I pretty much cook what we're going to have for the week. I may need a little bit more time in the kitchen, but not much. It takes practice, it's a little effort, but the food, when you know it's in your food, it's very reassuring because if you look at packaged food, for one thing, it's wrapped in plastic, okay? Microplastics are in your body from the food, and it also, it's been sitting there for God knows how long, and you don't know what the chemicals are that have been added to it. So it's really nice to know it's actually in your food and that it's freshly prepared. So that's, and we have a greenhouse. We've built it's very small greenhouse that's right outside our kitchen. And we have, in our garden, we have some vegetable beds. And we're trying to grow more of the food that we eat, which is a lot of work, but it's also a lot of fun. And when you taste, you don't have to have your own full garden to do this. Get a pot and grow your own tomatoes on the deck. When you taste one, you'll see that it's really worth the effort to try to grow some of your own food or at least buy from local organic farms. So that's probably the first thing. Oh, and one other thing, there's lots of good resources on the internet for simple, easy recipes. I really like a website called Minimalist Baker, but there's dozens of them. You'll find lots of inspiration with easy things that you can fix. And then exercise. For me, I really like Bar 3. I can do it online, which makes it feasible for my life. I don't have time to drive to the gym or the studio and work out and then drive home. That would add another hour to the workout, and I don't have 2 hours. I can allocate every day to exercise, but it's really important to exercise. So, for your stress as well as your bone health. And so I make it a point to do a bar class every day. And it's a combination of ballet, Pilates, and yoga exercises. And so for me, it's grace and strength. And I don't think about anything else for an hour, which is also a relief. I stop thinking about all my work. I just focus on what muscle I need to move and how I should be standing so that my posture is correct. So that's a break. And then what's the last thing? Diet, exercise, and supplements. Yeah. And then I take a few supplements. I think we'll talk about the specific ones later.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I know, you were diagnosed mid-40s, you said.
About 45.
Yeah, like any drastic changes? I feel like you and Joe are just so healthy and you walk the walk. And so you're probably doing, like you said, a lot of the right things. It was just tweaking, I guess, the bone health.
We had, so the big thing for me was finding out, my genetic susceptibilities. That was huge. But also we didn't know, it's 45, 55. That was like almost 30 years ago or more. And Joe, I think it's about 25 years, he started becoming very actively engaged in environmental toxin research and writing and lecturing about environmental toxins. So we really didn't know about all of it. And so we have gradually made changes. I remember at one point, we went through our home and we cleared out everything that was plastic. And we took garbage bags full of this stuff out to the recycle bin, unfortunately, where I hope it's not polluting that air.
Yeah.
But we stopped using plastic. We became much more, and I wasn't as careful about eating everything organic, and so I became more careful about that. We bought Pyrex glass containers for our food, and instead of storing things in plastic. I got rid of all my Tupperware. Sorry, Tupperware went away.
No, I know you're always harping on me too. And you're like, that's a plastic water bottle. Like, get rid of that. And so
Right, we stopped.
now when I eat out or when I go grocery shopping, I think of you and Joe sometimes.
Oh,
and
good.
you're in my mind saying, Moni, do not buy that.
Yeah, we're not fun to go out to dinner with.
I disagree. But yeah, no, I think
So-
it's, there's so many things to learn and it can feel really overwhelming at times. But
Initially,
Yeah.
but slowly you can just make
small
changes.
changes.
For every change that you make is your health is improving.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to, you can go to environmental working group and see which are the worst toxic laden foods and try to get those organic. And then you can, next time you see, you go to buy condiments, for example, buy some that are in glass instead of the plastic ones, Or when you're buying water, I really like Pellegrino. So they're bottling it now in plastic. So I don't buy that. I buy the Pellegrino that's in glass. I mean, it's just, lots of simple little things you can do every day that lower your toxin load.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's helpful and actionable, for people to make those small changes and gradually they compound and over time
You don't have to be perfect.
No.
I mean, no, but for one thing, no one is perfect.
Yeah.
And we can't avoid all environmental exposures. We just can't.
No, but I like that acknowledgement because then I think it feels a little less scary, And so one thing I want to touch on is mind-body connection, stress, sleep. Can you maybe
Right. Yeah,
share
stress is huge. The 21st century is stressful for many, many reasons. And stress depletes magnesium. And magnesium is a cofactor, meaning it activates more than 340 enzymes in the body, many of which relate to bone health. For one thing, the enzymes that convert vitamin D to 25-OHD and then to 125D, which is the active hormonal form of vitamin D that helps us absorb calcium, require magnesium. And if you're really under a lot of stress, you had a stressful week or whatever, you're burning up your magnesium. And then maybe 25% of people, at least, me included, like I said, I've had every SNP that's bad I have. So which is how I know about all this. 25% of people don't absorb magnesium well. We absorb magnesium with the help of a B vitamin called B6 it's activated by magnesium into a form called pyridoxal 5-phosphate. And pyridoxal 5-phosphate is what brings magnesium into our cells where it does all the work for us, activating all the other enzymes. If you can't get magnesium into your cells, then people, still feel more stressed out and they tell you take more magnesium, and the only thing that happens is osmotic diarrhea because magnesium stays in your intestines and it pulls water into the intestines and then your body wants to get rid of that. And so the result is osmotic diarrhea. Or you just take, more and more magnesium and it doesn't do anything. So that's a big issue. As many people that are listening to this and are members of the AlgaeCal community or become a member, I taped a full, they call them Ask Lara. They're like these little mini lectures I do on aspects of things that affect bone health. I taped a full one on stress. And because stress, when you're stressed out, your cortisol levels go up. And that's a good thing if it's short term. I mean, we need that short term. But when it's just chronic elevation of cortisol, even a little elevation of it, your insulin regulation goes off, and you start loading up belly fat. It's not just from carbs. I mean, I know now people are like no more carbs. I'm not going to eat carbs. Well, stress will put belly fat on you. It's another because of the cortisol elevation, and stress depletes magnesium. So that was why I was thinking about ensuring that your magnesium intake was adequate. And you might want to consider some P5P along with it to make sure it's getting into your cells. The B vitamins are water soluble. It's not going to hurt you to try.
Makes a lot of sense. And so you've now had 30 plus years of this bone health journey, so to speak. Roadblocks. I mean, no journey is perfect. Aside from, I know you had the hiccup in the car accident, which was definitely probably a
That was
roadblock or
a
hiccup. Aside from that, any other ones that you want to share, as you're navigating through this?
Probably just how difficult it was to get my vitamin D levels up. That was really challenging. And many people write me and they say, they're first of all, most of us are shocked to get a diagnosis of osteoporosis. For one thing, it's silent, until you break a bone, then it's quite unsilent. But initially, it's silent, and people are just shocked. They think they're exercising regularly, and everybody thinks their diet is great. And but when I look at what people are eating, there's almost always shortfalls in key nutrients related to. So for myself as well, okay. So when I really looked at my diet, I found that I wasn't getting enough calcium. I was burning up my magnesium at a ridiculous rate because we have a very high-paced, stressful life. And I wasn't getting enough omega-3 essential fatty acids, which are the omega-3s are what resolve inflammation. And so anything else that's going on, you really need the omega-3s to help clear out the inflammation that's produced. I mean, just our normal daily life and even exercise causes inflammation, which is exercise, which is good for us in so many other ways. It does promote some inflammation. And so if you're omega-3 deficient, you're not going to get that inflammation resolved, and then it's going to promote bone loss. So looking at my own diet and at the nutritional inadequacies that I found, and also trace minerals are a big issue for people. There's a bunch of them that are lacking now in the food supply because of the way our food is grown, and they're all important. I tried to devote little chapters to each of the key ones in Healthy Bones, Healthy You to explain to people why they're so important. So that was a roadblock. Figuring out all the things that would contribute to inflammation in my system, and then how to correct for that, because it's all correctable. You just have to identify what the issues are in an individual person, and then change the diet a little bit, change the supplements a little bit, suggest other forms of exercise or whatever, or stress reduction techniques.
This is great. And so actually, on that same note, I want to switch gears a little bit and really talk about your work with bone health, specifically your books. And so what kind of motivated you to write your latest book, Healthy Bones, Healthy You?
After the second edition of Your Bones, I had learned, so I keep learning. I really do spend the first couple of hours of every day reading research.
And those that don't know, can you mention you're actually doing a master's as well, right?
I decided to go back to school, and I'm just finishing a master's in clinical nutrition, which I have focused just on bone health, and I'm pretty encyclopedic on that. But there are many, many, many conditions that contribute to bone health. And so I now have a deeper understanding of the pathophysiology of those conditions. I've spent more work looking at all the nutrients and our requirements for protein and carbohydrate and fat. And I just have a much deeper understanding of all these things and lab tests and all of it. So I'm really glad I've done this, and I'm really glad I'm going to be done with it. Next December, I will graduate. And because it's taking me an extra 25 to 30 hours a week to do the work for school, plus my normal work, plus all the stuff that Joe and I do. Yeah. So it's been a rather hectic few years.
Yeah. So please, go back to Healthy Bones, Healthy You.
Oh, okay. So Healthy Bones, Healthy You. So anyway, I keep learning.
Yeah.
And there was a lot more information that wasn't in your bones, and I wanted to get it out there. So the best way to do that is with a book. People, then people have a resource they can have at home. They can look to see whatever area they're concerned with or what's of interest to them. And
Well, and what a book it is, too, because it's not just the research. You have a section, I believe, on exercise, some recipes. Can you,
right.
dive into that a little bit?
So, well, I tried. There's so many books on diet, and there's lots of good recipes online. But so in Healthy Bones, Healthy You, I just went through and tried to very succinctly summarize these are the basic rules of a healthy diet. This is what you want to try to do. It doesn't matter what type of diet we're not clones. Like, the high meat diet works for people. A vegan diet can work for people. I think it takes a lot more work to be a healthy vegan. A vegetarian diet can work for people. But you've got to know some very basic things about whatever diet you're trying to follow to ensure that it is a healthy diet. And so I tried to summarize those rules in Healthy Bones, Healthy You. And I hope it will be useful for people to try to navigate some of the 8,000 articles that come out every week on what diet you should be providing and why, this one's the only one for everybody, because I do not think that's true. We're unique.
Absolutely. And everyone should, kind of make an informed decision about their health. And like you said, bio-individuality there. And so, again, pivoting, we talked about the AlgaeCal community. We haven't really gone into it too much, but you're a resident bone health expert. You're in there weekly, daily, seeing these stories and speaking with people who've, just been diagnosed or going through their journey. What's it been like to be a support system and kind of like a wealth of knowledge, a resource to these men and women?
It's been very inspiring for me. I love the people that are everybody who's part of the AlgaeCal community. There are women who and men who didn't just want to take a drug. I mean, they looked at these were people who were proactive, and when they were diagnosed and they went to their doctor, and the doctor said, take a bisphosphonate or whichever medication they recommended. These people looked to see how effective are these medications and what are the side effects that are associated with them. And after they got done reading, sometimes research, sometimes just posts and things on those facts, they decided they didn't want to go that route, and they wanted to find a more natural approach to restoring the health of their bones. And so they're smart. These are smart, proactive people, and it's just a real honor to try to provide good information for them. And then it is such a delight. It's such a win for me when people write back in and they say it's been, I've been on AlgaeCal and trying to eat better and exercise more, and my bone density went up, 12, 14%. My doctor's just blown away, and it's just, yeah.
Yeah. It's the most gratifying feeling. And I'm just in there kind of, being a shadow and a fly on the wall, if you will. But for you, I know you're more active in there. That feeling must be amplified. And, when we started the community, it's been a little over 5 years now. And we're like,
Yeah, it was
Laura,
like 20 people.
yeah, Laura's
I
got to be
remember.
the resident bone health expert. But I don't think we really knew at the time how big it was going to be. Of course, in numbers, but also the impact. Because for us at AlgaeCal, we're a supplement company at heart, but we always want to provide more, whether it's the support with our bone health consultants, whether it's now this community. And I think that's on our side. What's been so positive is, like you said, the feedback and the people being engaged and active in there and sharing.
And it's a team effort.
It's a team effort.
My mission in this life is to end osteoporosis. No one should have it. And for people who do, there are ways to make, return your bones to health. And I want to be part of that. But, a few people can't do it. Like we need all of us supporting each other to provide good information for people, so that resources, so that they have things that they can do for themselves. And I think the AlgaeCal community does that.
I love that. I think that's a perfect place to kind of end in our interview. But we have a little segment that we like to call our quick round of rapid fire questions. We'll start with the first one. What's one piece of advice you would offer someone who has just been diagnosed with osteoporosis or osteopenia?
You can rebuild your bones. Like, don't completely freak out. You just need to determine what factors are causing your bone loss, and it's doable. Then take action to lessen those factors or mitigate them, and your bones will start to renew. We were born to have healthy bones, and all you have to do is stop some of the damage and provide nutritional support and exercise.
What's the most common mistake you see people making when it comes to bone health?
So I think the most common mistake is that everybody tells me my diet's great. And when I actually look at it, do a nutritional analysis of their diet, I always find nutritional insufficiencies of key nutrients that bones require. Some of this can be easily made up for by just taking AlgaeCal Plus, which provides all the key nutrients our bones require in foundational amounts, but not the total that you need. Your diet is supposed to be, supplements are supposed to be supplemental. They're supposed to be adding to a healthy diet. So I very often see insufficiencies and sometimes excesses in people's nutrient intakes.
So then, next question, what are your must-take supplements for bone health?
Okay, so for me, AlgaeCal Plus and Strontium Boost, they really, those two really turned it around for me. Then I have to take vitamin D. I take it both, additional vitamin D, both as D3 complete, because I want to promote my body's ability to use vitamin D, and all the fat-soluble vitamins work together. So I take some D3 complete. And then I also, because of my genetic problems, I take a drop of sublingual vitamin D. And then I take triple power to ensure that I'm getting the omega-3s that I need, because we try to eat fish a couple of times a week, but that would not be enough to provide optimal amount of EPA and DHA. So I take a tablespoon of triple power every day. And lastly, I have added AlgaeCal collagen because as we age, we tend to lose muscle mass. And, I do exercise, but I want to do everything I can to maintain my muscle mass. And since I've been taking AlgaeCal collagen, my ability to lift weights has increased. So I'm going to increase my weights now.
What are 3 simple dietary changes people can make to help save their bones?
So the first one I would say is eat real food. Skip the plastic, highly processed stuff as much as possible. Try to eat organically grown foods, fruits, grains, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. You want look for free-range eggs. Look for pastured meats if you eat meat. And cook. Try some of the bazillion options for recipes online. I know AlgaeCal has really good recipes. There's a whole section of recipes, and they're not difficult, and the instructions are really good. So that would be the first thing I would say. Then you know what's in your food, and it's fresh. And I think it's healthier for us. I'm sure it's healthier for us. The next thing I would suggest is stop eating by 8 p.m. at night. So at night, your body switches from digestive mode, to repair mode. And if you eat late at night, your body's going to be in digestive mode for most of the night. You want to stop eating at least 3 hours before you go to bed. So your body switches over into repair mode and renew mode, and then you want to give it at least 12 hours from when you stop eating at night. So let's say 8 p.m. at night until at least 8 p.m. the following morning. You can have your coffee in the morning or whatever, but eating a full meal early, it's better to wait until 10, 11, 12 o'clock to have a full meal. So that would be the second thing. And then the last thing is most people that I check are slightly dehydrated. As we age, our sense of thirst diminishes. And so we're not as notified by our body to drink more. Still, it's essential to drink more. If your body is not adequately hydrated, interactions that occur in your cells don't occur properly. Your skin gets droopy and saggy, which is inspiring. Your brain doesn't function properly. So it's really important to women need to have at least, I think it's 11.7 liters or cups every day, 11.5 cups of clean water. It's beverages, there's fluids in food, like fruit. You eat an orange or something, there's fluid in it. So I think it would be a good idea for most people to track their fluid intake, especially if you're exercising and you're sweating or you take a sauna or whatever. you need to rehydrate. So that's what I would check, and make sure that you're drinking your water out of a glass bottle and not plastic.
Absolutely. All right. So, stress can have a dramatic impact on health in general, but especially bone health. What are your top 3 tips for managing stress?
So the one that I rely on 3 things. First one is the daily workout. Like for 1 hour a day, all I'm focusing on is movement, my muscles. I'm trying to improve my strength, and I'm trying to move with grace, and I'm trying to have good posture, and really focus on that. It's such a relief to only focus on that for just an hour. You feel a lot better afterwards. I do bar 3. That's what works for me. I can do it online at home, so I don't have to go to spend an extra time going to the gym and coming back. So that's what I do. And then the next thing I would say is make sure that you get good rest. And I know that's a challenge for us now. To start to tune down reasonably early, 2 to 3 hours before you want to go to bed. Joe and I now have a habit of 5 o'clock or so, we turn off the computers. We try to have a bath together. We get in a bathtub and we put in some Epsom salts and we talk about our days. What did you do? It's good for your marriage too. So we do that. Turn off your iPhone and your tablet, and you read a book. For an hour or half an hour before you go to bed. Make sure that the light is not what is it? Red light is bad, blue light is good, or the reverse. I can never remember, but on your tablet or on your iPhone, you can set it up so that or even on your computer. Although I don't recommend working late at night on your computer, you can set it up so that it's not the form of light that keeps you awake and interferes with melatonin. I take herbal tonin at night about an hour before I go to bed. It's been very helpful for me. And just think about everything that you're grateful for. We so focus on what's wrong, and it adds so much stress to our lives. But there are so many things that we can be grateful for in our lives, and that leads me to the last thing: pray. Meditate, clear your mind so that you are open, and you can recognize that you are not a disparate, weird thing, but you're part of an overarching whole that was created by divine intelligence that is beneficent. And you can trust in that. Even when things seem really scary and strange, that is the ultimate truth. And if you can just get quiet and open yourself up to that fact, I think it really takes the pressure off.
Laura, thank you so much for sharing your personal journey with us today. Your insights and experiences are nothing short of inspiring, and it's clear how deeply passionate you are about empowering others to make informed decisions about their bone health. To our listeners, don't miss out on Laura's book, Healthy Bones, Healthy You, where she's distilled over 30 years of knowledge into one accessible guide. And if you'd like to dive deeper, join the AlgaeCal community on Facebook, our dedicated space for AlgaeCal customers. There, Laura has created a wealth of videos covering everything from identifying the root causes of bone loss to practical strategies for restoring lasting health. Plus, you can tap into her expertise by asking questions and getting personalized guidance on your unique bone health challenges. Laura, your work in the community is a true testament to your generosity, your kindness, and unparalleled expertise. We can't thank you enough for your contributions and for being here with us today.